Hello, we're live, everybody. If there's anyone here,
Hi.
I'm not sure yet. But I am here with the fabulous Dal Cecile Runo, and I'm
Hi.
going to let her introduce herself to you guys who are not here yet.
To whoever is here and or whoever is catching up the replay, hello, they're humans. I am Dal Cecil Bruno, the partially blind alien who's an own voices author, aka the ace from space. I write science fiction primarily. I'm working on a sci-fi series that I'm looking to traditionally publish. That's why it's gonna take forever for me to get that book out there. I also like to explore other genres with my short stories. I have a short story coming out this Halloween, and I already have a short story out in a disability and romance anthology. How did I write a romance? I don't know. It was a challenge. It was accepted, and I enjoyed the process very much. But that was a one-off miracle, I suppose. I also I'm working on a magical realism draft. I don't for a short story. Yeah, I like to explore other genres with my shorts, and I have a couple of poems posted on my channel. If you want to check that out, that's on my YouTube with the same name. And yeah, and I'm here to talk about whatever Lauren wants to talk about because it's very laid back and chill, and just talk about whatever questions or whatever pops up in today's stream.
Yes. My name is Lauren Severe. If you're here, you know where my YouTube channel is. It would be really cool if you liked, subscribed, said hello in the chat. That would be wonderful. I am a young adult author, YouTuber, and mom from down home, Louisiana. I am working on getting my debut young adult fantasy novel, Songs of Autumn, out November 21st of this year. And today I invited Dal onto a stream because there were some things that I really wanted to talk about, and I felt like it could be beneficial to the AuthorTube community. A lot of times, when we think about writing and we talk about writing and reading and plotting and drafting and all of these things, I'm kind of dense. I don't know about anybody else, but until I have to look at the publishing industry or writing or anything in general, like in my life from a new perspective, it never really occurs to me. And so Dal and I have been friends for a while. We've had conversations in the past. I have a family member, my husband's grandpa, Pops, has macular degeneration, which is a degenerative eye disease, which means that he's slowly losing his vision and he's slowly losing his independence. Like every day there's something new that he can't do anymore. And that's a reality that I sort of have been faced with, having a family member with that, knowing that my husband with his autoimmune condition has a higher chance of developing macular degeneration and vision issues. So it just sort of became forefront in my life. And then Dal made a comment in the Facebook group. And so I feel like we need to address that so they know kind of why we're doing the stream, is that there was a writing advice video from a really popular YouTuber, an author tuber. And some of the advice was to write more visually, have more showing, less telling. And Dal was kind of like, why are we perpetuating this advice? And she made some good points. And that YouTuber who had the writing advice video, she didn't mean anything negative at all. She was actually wonderful, in the comments and everything.
Yeah.
I think I agree. Wonderful person, no shade, no tea. But I realized that I had a lot of different questions about, how the publishing industry, writing advice videos, YouTube content creators, how, we can be more accessible for people with disabilities, like the blind and visually impaired community. In fact, it led me to start, I'm actually developing an audiobook version of Songs of Autumn, hopefully to be released in November, whenever the other versions are released, but because I didn't want to leave anybody out, basically.
I already pre-ordered. I already pre-ordered your book. I have it. It's waiting for it to be a thing. And I'm gonna get that audiobook now.
I'm excited. There's I met the narrator. Actually, we're in one of the same Facebook groups, and I commented on a post of hers randomly because her last name is my son's first name. And I was like, hey, this is really weird, but my son's name is Bellamy and your last name is Bellamy. And I just thought I'd reach out. And she was like, haha, that made my day, whatever. And that was like the only interaction we had. And then she posted again and said, I'm considering doing audiobook narration. And anybody who like knows anybody or whatever, like here's my profile on ACX. And I like checked it out and I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for an audiobook. Like I need to reach out to her. And so yeah, we're starting that process. So that's going to be fun. And part of that, I was like, not going to do an audiobook because I was worried about the expense and I was worried about like time with all my publishing restructures and stuff. But like, I wanted Pops to be able to read my book. So, yeah. So that was like another just reason I wanted to kind of, I guess, talk about things or whatever. The first thing that I actually wanted to get into though, Dal, is like, what specific like common or popular writing advice has given you the most obstacles, like as an
Well, wait, hang on.
No, I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. No problem.
My gosh. No, but I guess I mean in your journey as an author, like when you were getting writing advice and you're first starting out, like what was some of the really common popular stuff that maybe was an obstacle for you or you didn't understand?
Yeah, descriptions. Because the focus on visual descriptions is very and it depends on the genre though. As I am learning now, it really depends on the genre. So for example, if because on AuthorTube we have people from all walks of life and all genres and all forms of publishing giving you advice. Could be a self-published romance author, could be a traditionally published romance author, could be a traditionally published sci-fi author, it could be all kinds of things. So like all genres and big or small, but like it really depends on who is giving you the advice. And so for example, the very basic advice of description, like add more descriptions or be more specific with your descriptions, and all the enhancements on body language, and all these visual details that you have to put in your writing for readers to. Oh, no, I'm here. Am I here? Uh-oh. Am I here? Holy shit. I'm here. Lauren? Uh-oh.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry.
Oh my god. Okay, you're back, Lauren?
I'm back. Are you back?
Yes.
System malfunction here. I'm in a weird part of the house. It's the only part of the house that has all bars and stuff for my Wi-Fi, but randomly it'll be weird.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an older house. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, but like, yeah, visual descriptions. Basically, the advice on giving descriptions is the one that has me very insecure about my writing. Like, I know punctuation can be fixed. I know spelling can be fixed. I know my English is my second language, so grammar is going to be something to fix. That's okay. But like descriptions, I feel that that's a weakness for me. Mm-hmm. And since a lot of people always enhance on the show versus tell, and like that's why I said that I wrote a romance once, and I have to show more respect to the genre. What I did was never an intent to disrespect. But I wrote a romance short with a blind character, and it wasn't well received because it's a blind character, and I wasn't enhancing the other senses too much, because that's a stereotype and it's not real. We don't, we don't go like. Sorry?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Yeah, we don't go like, we don't walk around in the street and listen to people's phone call conversations on the other side of the road. We cannot do those things. That's not real.
Abilities, Dal? Gosh, how dare you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and so my character was very focused on sound primarily because my character was a musician in this folk metal band, like that was the whole role of the character. He or she, because I left it ambiguous, which is something that I also realized that it's not very liked, because it could be LGBTQ, could be straight. I didn't use he or she or them. I just left it open so people could see whatever they wanted to see in the characters. So it included everybody, but that wasn't well received either, according to some reviews. So I was learning my lessons, my very hard lessons, and since I didn't enhance the other characters' senses, people in the genre felt that my storytelling was very vague or something. I wasn't, but according to them and what they already expect and what they already want, it was too subtle, maybe too subtle, and it wasn't, what they want. So that was one thing that left me a little like, okay, maybe I should really not try to write romance anymore, because I just did it all wrong, and I don't want people to feel that I am disrespecting them when I really tried my best and I was very sincere with my story. It was actually a very near and dear story to me because I said it. The setting was Iceland as usual. My God, like everything has to do with Iceland with me. But I had a reason for that. The lighthouse, that's the main focus of the story. The lighthouse exists. It's a real lighthouse, and it's a cultural place where many photographers have their exhibits, and musicians really have gigs in there because of the acoustics of the lighthouse. So it became a cultural center of that little town in Iceland, and my first photo exhibit as a blind photographer was there. So I
Love
was very,
that.
yeah,
I
I
love
was very
that.
sincere. I was very sincere with my little story, but it is not what the genre wants. The readers of the genre is not what they want. So it's kind of
Abby popped
difficult for.
in and left a comment, and she said, "Hey
Hi.
y'all, I can't wait to see this. I'll catch the replay in a couple of hours." So,
Don't worry,
thank you,
Savvy. Thank
Abby.
you.
And we appreciate you so much. Um,
We appreciate you, Savvy.
appreciate all of you. I have another question. So,
Yeah.
um, and I said I was going to mention this at the beginning of the stream, and I didn't. I think I should
Mm,
probably do that now before I ask you my question. Clearly,
mhm.
Val does not represent the entirety of the blind or visually impaired community. She
I
just has
don't.
been a passionate voice in AuthorTube, for different things that I hadn't considered before. And she is a member of the blind and visually impaired community. So that is why I invited her on the stream. And she's a friend. So I felt like I could talk to her casually and it could
Yeah.
be a conversation instead of it being like an interview or a debate. So there.
Yeah, it's not a debate, it's not an interview. It's we're just friends and chatting. And
Yeah.
yeah, I will clarify for people catching replay and whatever. I am visually impaired, like it's called, okay, in bureaucratic terms, it's called legally blind. So I am legally blind, and for people who don't do bureaucracy very well, it's partially blind. I am very, like, my ophthalmologist, like I had an eyesight test very recently, like few months ago, before the whole beverage bug happened, and the doctor says I have less than 10% vision. Like I have less, like even less than 5. I have nothing. How do I do what I do with the little I have? I don't really know. The doctor
With
doesn't know
grace.
either. Like,
Do it all with
yeah,
grace and with fortitude. That's all we can say.
yeah.
Um,
So for people watching this and for people catching up the replay, my eyesight condition is called chorioretinal coloboma. I will have to spell that at some point somewhere in the chat or whatever. But it's like chorioretinal, like it's like
I love how you
chorioretinal.
roll your R's. It's
Yeah,
fabulous. I can't do it.
the
I've tried so many
Finnish,
times. I'm terrible at it.
the Finnish in me is coming out. I'm sorry, but like trying to
Yeah.
make it clear, like the spelling thing, it's like chorioretinal Coloboma, so it's like really freaking weird. It's like, what is this nonsense? It's like nobody has that thing. It's like only you have that. That's why I joke about being an alien. I don't do it as an offense to my own community. It's just that I am a combination of so many things that I might as well be an alien. So it's a joke. I have this eyesight condition thing. I am also openly asexual. I am also biracial. I am also a pagan. I am also adopted. I am
As
also
diverse as you can get.
I am the weirdest diverse. Like, I'm very diverse. It is true.
So back to my question before I forget it, because I'm ADHD and I'm unmedicated and I will totally forget.
Hmm.
So
Don't
we
worry.
were talking earlier about like writing advice that you received as like a fledgling author trying to like get into things and like things that would confuse you, and a lot of it was like descriptions, focuses on things like showing versus telling, like that was confusing of a concept
Yeah.
to you. My question would be this, like to just kind of delve into that a little bit deeper. What about like descriptions of eyes? Like, is that a thing that confuses you? Like, I realized editing my novel that I talk a lot about the main characters, like looking into each other's eyes and stuff, and like the color of their
And
eyes.
that
Like,
is something
up in their eyes. And so,
that is I have a hard time with this. I have a hard time with this when I'm reading books, when I'm trying to write, because I know that people care about those things. I try to do it, and I'm an epic failure.
well, and like that old adage, like the eyes are the window to the soul. Like, you know, what do you do with that? I guess.
Yeah,
How does
what do I mean, that's a saying that I understand that everybody else wants to use, because sure, very beautiful, the eyes are the windows to the soul. My eyes are broken, so what? So, yeah, no, and literally my eyes are misshapen. Like, this is why I don't turn on the camera. It's not about insecurity, it's about accommodating people that might be put off by something that doesn't look very normal. So I understand that this is the internet and this is YouTube, and we have to be aesthetically pleasing. It's a thing. I mean, I'm not denying it. So, like, yeah. Hmm?
I put lipstick on and fixed my hair before getting on stream.
Yeah, but like, it's a real thing, like we have to be aesthetically decent and presentable and stuff. And since my eyes cannot cooperate, because my eyes are just moving all over the place, and they really are a little bit smaller than average, the pupils are a little bit smaller than average, so they look very different. I might as well be an alien. So this is why I never turn on the camera. So it's not insecurity, it's just that people are assholes and this is the internet, and we have to be realistic of, you know.
It is the internet and people are jerks here. We
Yeah.
had some other people join in the chat. I just kind of want to do
Hi.
a shout out. So MV Mackenzie said hi. I just got here.
Hi.
Hi, MV Mackenzie. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Heather, Dewey said it. Said
Hi,
hi.
Heather.
I never stream, but I'm here now. I love Heather. She's fabulous.
Heather is so insightful. She's an editor. She's very insightful. I love Heather.
And then she said, and I skipped. And then MV Mackenzie says, so you're blind as a bat? Question mark.
I love bats. Yeah. And actually bats, that's a great point, because bats have very crappy vision. They are not completely blind. So they have eyesight like me, is just crap, and they cannot really trust it as much. So it's just like me. I am blind as a bat, in fact.
Yeah. And then Heather said she liked the stream. Thank you so much. Adega Outlaw said,
Thank you.
good afternoon. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Adega. So good to see you.
Thank you for
Fellow
coming.
sci-fi writer. Fellow sci-fi writer. Adega has really cool sci-fi books, and he also reads them on his YouTube channel. So you see, accessibility. Love it.
Heather also said intersectionality defined, right, pal?
Yes, I am all the intersectionalities you can think of. And that also makes it sometimes challenging for me as well. Like I also have a lot to learn because I have a lot of intersectionalities, like a blind biracial asexual pagan adopted foreigner. What the and I have depression and anxiety, so I also have mental health to take care of. And I am also working slash poor class, like so I have all the marginalizations put in one package, all of it. And that also makes it difficult for me to navigate with other kinds of other intersectionalities that are not my own. So I
Yeah.
also have to open the door and like learn from their perspectives.
Well,
So
the
for
great thing about it too, like we've talked several times, just just message each other back and forth, like not on stream or whatever. And we've talked so many times. We're probably two of the most opposite people on the planet, and we're still able to
Mhm.
respect each other and be friendly with one another. And it's because we both consciously like not only listen to one another, but we're always aware of the fact that there's another perspective and we can learn from each other and that other perspective.
Absolutely.
And like
Absolutely.
that's kind of the thing is like you don't have to be the same as somebody else. You don't have to believe the same things as somebody else as long as you're kind to one another and you listen to one another. Like, things usually work out pretty well. Or at least in my
Mhm.
opinion of my life experience. MV McKenzie says, I'm sure your eyes aren't as bad as my bad hair day, LOL. And then she said, yes, bad eyes, but great hearing. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of leads into the next thing that I wanted to ask you about because, clearly things like descriptions, punctuation, grammar, things like showing versus telling, writing advice and stuff that was given to you, descriptions of eyes and eyes being the windows to the soul, like all of these things that are pretty, I would say, somewhat universally included in like popular writing advice or whatever. And
Mhm.
as YouTube content creators, because I create writing advice videos,
Yeah.
and you're a YouTube content creator as well. Like, how does that translate to us? Like, how can we make that advice more inclusive? You know what I mean? Less confusing for our viewers, like because that is something that I want to be aware of, like I don't want to make videos
Mhm.
that may be excluding people unintentionally or maybe, generalized, which means that it can be confusing for people in different communities. Like how can we correct that? Like what can we do as YouTube content creators to make advice better for everybody and more inclusive for everybody?
We what I think is that, like, for example, when people are doing this kind of video advice, and there's another member in the community who does a lot of presentation style videos that are super informative, and I just love the person's videos a lot, but I sometimes cannot see what's on the screen, so I'm just basically listening to the person. But then the person is like, and here on screen you can see, and I'm like, okay, now you lost me because I cannot see what's on screen. Can you please tell me what exactly is on screen? And I sometimes leave the comment like when you said here on screen, and in the 3 minutes 55 seconds part, I put the timestamp, for example. And
Yeah.
like I'm like, I don't know what you were talking about because I can't see the screen. I'm just listening to you. Like,
On screen if you're going to do a presentation style video, like maybe being more descriptive about like, and here is a graphic that I did,
the
showing
yeah yeah
character
the blue part, the blue square there says this and that, the red square says this and that, and that means this and that.
what's on the screen if it's not something that, you know, that
Yeah,
you if you are blind.
that is something that I also struggled with at university and school. Like, the teachers were really reliant on, and here you can see, and I'm like, and I always raised my hand like, no, I can't. Oh, we will discuss after class, and I'm like, okay, thank you.
That's a
It's
good point.
very
I did a cover concept like video where I talked about the cover I chose, the reasons I chose different things for my cover. I showed the other concept and stuff, but I don't think that I ever actually described each one for my audience. And like that probably was not a great video for anyone in the blind or visually impaired community. Like now that I'm
I
thinking, like,
usually
right
I
now, and I'm
usually skip. I usually when people have cover reveals and stuff, I usually skip them because like, yeah, okay, cool.
oh,
I look at the
this visual
I
thing, and you can't see it.
yeah, so I just skip it because like let's be honest, I will not understand half of what's going on in there. So it's like let's just skip it. Now, I have to be very because people will say, "But dude, look at your Instagram and dude, look at your YouTube thumbnails. How do you do it if you're blind, but when someone else does it, you don't get it?" I have to explain because I have never explained this before, and I should, because people are already assuming things, and I'm like, oh, I didn't mean I didn't mean it that way. Okay, so I know, for example, I know what I'm doing with my Instagram visuals and my YouTube visuals because I am the one producing it. I can zoom in on the phone, or as much as I can zoom in as much as I want to. I already understand color theory because I went to a high school of arts. I understand like different styles for like color palettes and what looks good, and I know a little bit of design. I know a little bit about it. I'm not an expert, but I have some knowledge, so I can apply that, especially with colors and contrast and making things pop, a little. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I have an idea of what I'm doing because I am the one who's producing it. I know exactly what I'm putting into it. And the other thing is I work with symbolism a lot. And so I know exactly what I want to transmit with my visual content. But when
Mhm.
it's someone else's, when it's someone else's product, I didn't design it. I wasn't there. So sometimes it's hard for me to connect with what is done because I didn't do it, so I don't know what's going on in there. Sometimes I do, sometimes, like, for example, your book cover is very simple. It's a purple leaf, right? I
Um,
suppose it's an I
thistle.
suppose it's an uh-huh.
It's a thistle. It's a purple thistle. In the center of the cover with this little blood drop on the side, and it's like a very white background with some like designs in the background, and then the
Yeah.
title is really big and gold. Um,
Hmm.
Near like the
Yeah.
bottom half of it.
I see the big purple thing and I thought it was a leaf. Like an autumn leaf because of Songs of Autumn. I thought it was a leaf. Yeah, I just thought it was a tree leaf, but purple because it's pretty. And
it's, it's foliage, you know. You got most of it,
yeah,
and like, the thistle is like important in the plot. So like you probably would have connected the dots. Like after reading it, you would have been like, ah, it's a thistle, you know.
yeah, yeah. It's symbolic to your cover. So
Right, right,
you see, I understand it like half. I halfway understand it because I didn't do it.
yeah.
I didn't make it myself. So like I understand. I find it pretty. I think it's very pretty, and I love it because I can see the color contrast. I can see the whole like the big picture aesthetic, and I understand it, but I don't know the whole thing. It's like it's harder for me to interact.
I didn't even have questions about cover stuff because it literally never even occurred to me to ask them. And it seems
No.
so ridiculous now because like you're like because oh my god, like I'm having so many realizations because like when they say like don't judge a book by its cover, right? But like literally
Hmm.
people in the blind and visually impaired communities can't even see your cover. And like my
Or we
whole
see it, or we see it halfway through, or we see some of it, but
right.
not really.
And like how a
So what I
concept like that on the front cover could maybe be a little more visually stimulating to somebody who's partially blind than like maybe a cover that has really complementary or similar like colors, which would be well
Mm-hmm,
brought
mm-hmm.
together. Like
I have to
oh
I
my
have
God,
to bring up
where
an
do
example.
you
I have to bring up an example of a beautiful book cover, and people are gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but like recently, author Kiera L. Rose, or AKA the Naked Firefly,
Oh
she
yeah.
released a book this Wednesday. It's called The Healer's Love. So if you haven't picked that book yet, it's called The Healer's Love. It's a romance novel. That cover, I don't understand everything that's in it, but the colors, dude, it just pops. It's gorgeous. There's just the color contrast, I suppose
It's
I
wild.
suppose
I don't think
it's
my mind is blown.
you haven't seen it?
No, I just meant about like the fact that I hadn't even considered like the implication for like when you're designing your book cover. Like I'm just so like there's so many things that I didn't think about, like until you talk to somebody and you gain a different perspective. Like there's just so many things that I haven't experienced. And so it's like I would never know to ask certain questions or to think about things from a different point of view unless we were having this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, well, I like that's a great example of something that I love the book cover, and I think I know what's in the cover, but I'm not 100% sure of what's in the cover. I think it's like like these spiritual healers that use natural elements like leaves and seeds and
yeah,
things like that.
a mortar and pestle, and it looks
Mm-hmm.
like there's some herbs on it, and there's like some pink and red tones, and then like the
Yes.
white of the mortar and pestle against that. I definitely see what you're talking about. It's a good cover.
Yeah.
It's a great,
Yeah. It's gorgeous. It is
yeah.
one of my favorite book covers. Like the first time I saw it, popped on Facebook, and it just popped to me. So like I was like, "Oh my god, what is
Marketing
this?"
tips though, to like have contrasting colors and elements, that could be clearly defined, out of your cover, so that even people of different communities may still be able to see it and then get interested. Because that's the thing, like that's what every marketing person I've ever talked to has said, is like everyone says don't judge a book by the cover, but it's a lie, because like the cover is the first thing that they have to look at to make them interested to read the blurb, give them like a second opportunity to want to buy your book. So it was like cover and
Yeah.
blurb, and then that might get you a sale or whatever, whether it's online or wherever. But like, I mean, that's so good to know. Like, do contrasting colors more often, maybe make sure a certain element or something else like pops out, and that,
Mm-hmm.
that
It's something
might be able
unique.
to, yeah.
Something unique, and like for example that particular book had me very interested because it matches with the title, The Healer's Love. And I was like, hey, this is something kind of spiritual, because that it has some herbs and some method of healing that the healers use. So I
Yeah.
know there's a spiritual thing going on in there. Then I asked her, and she explained to me what it was related to. So, and I was like, that's interesting. I'm already looking forward. And like it's so the cover in itself was like, hey, this has some spiritual elements, and that calls for my attention. So that popped, like that's why, for example, books that have just
The mortar and
book.
pestle, the herbs on the front,
Mhm.
and being able to
Mhm.
hear, I guess if it's read to you, from off of the ad or whatever, the title, and being able to make those connections. That's kind of what made you interested enough to like reach out and then
Yes,
know what it was about and want to buy.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like
so
this
much
is why.
talent being dropped right now. Oh my god, so exciting.
Yeah, like look, this is why, for example, a book that only has like the face of the main character in it, that doesn't tell me anything. I don't
Gotcha.
even get interested because like it's somebody's
Mackenzie,
face. That
MD
doesn't tell me anything.
has a couple of questions in the chat I want to get to real quick. Okay.
Okay, ask away.
So said it does sound like it makes your life harder. She said, so all you would see on my cover is a brown blur. Now, I don't know what your cover looks like, MV McKenzie. Maybe if you gave us a little more information on that, or you can't drop a link, but maybe if you, I don't know, if you Facebook me, message me some of the cover, maybe I can share that with Dal, so she can maybe tell you if she's able to see much of it or if it's contrasting enough.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I think we'd have to see the cover more for that question.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then she
Yeah.
said, would you read large print book or would it have to be in Braille?
I don't do Braille because I never had the training. So what I do is that I have accessibility features on my phone and tablet, and the robotic voice reads it for me, which is annoying, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
So when there is no audiobook option, when there is no audiobook and it's only an ebook, because I understand absolutely that the production of an audiobook could be very costly, which absolutely understand. So sometimes there's only an ebook. Okay, I will go on Kindle, buy the ebook, and I put the talk back or the voiceover depending on where you are, because like iOS, so Apple, iPhone, iPad, I whatever, has the feature called voiceover or speak screen, both of them. Like it depends on, yeah, but you have the feature that talks back to you, that you select the text or you just click on the text and make a quick gesture. There are tutorials to learn how to do that, and the thing will read it back to you with a robotic voice that sounds annoying like this, but it's very interesting still to be able to read a whole book like this. It's very annoying. but I mean, but like, if you are if you are a good writer, and this is what I tell everybody, if you are a good writer, if your book is interesting, well written, hard to predict, because if it's predictable I'm gonna fall asleep. That's a dull problem. I have to clarify that that's a dull problem. But like if it's predictable, but like if it's well written, if it's, entertaining, engaging, if it's well written, the prose flows, it's interesting, then I can just read the whole book in one sitting, even with a robot. I have already had books like that. I have to give a big shout out to Savvy from Savvy Writes Books. All her books, Sculpt Yourself, One Final Vinyl. Those are the books that I have read from her. And like, I also have to give a shout out to Jillian Maria. She's barely on AuthorTube. I think she's not. Like, she just made a couple of videos for her book release time, but she also had an interview with Story Detective. So, like, author Jillian Maria had a book called The Songbird's Refrain. I started reading that book, say at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and it was 5 a.m. in the morning the next day, and I was finishing it. Like I couldn't stop.
Those are the best.
I couldn't stop the book, and it was just with the robotic voice that sounds like this, very annoying, but I could still read the whole book like this. Like, that's what I mean. It was so well written, the prose was incredible. So like those are the writers that I go like, yeah, that I can totally like. And that's the same method that I use to produce my own thing. I write, I draft, and whenever I have a big chunk of text, could be a chapter, or less than a chapter, could be a section, could be a scene. It depends. I could listen to the whole book again. Like, I have listened to my book and my entire book just to see the flow of it. But that's how I do it. I draft and then I listen to it. And I go and I start fixing the typos and fixing clunky sentences that I don't trust how it sounds or whatever. Some things I cannot fix because, like, again, English is my second language. So there are things that I will never catch until a native speaker tells me this is just not right. And I'm like, oh, let me fix that.
We talked about
But
that
like,
before, the fact that you're so multicultural and you have like different languages and stuff in your book, that might be a
yeah.
barrier to like, editing and publishing and stuff for you, just because you're not a native English speaker and it's harder for you to self-edit anything because the grammar and the punctuation and stuff, like you can't like actually see that. You can't see the formatting of it. And if it,
I am improving though. I learn as I go. I'm working on. Oh, sorry, there are more comments.
Yeah, MV McKenzie told us what her cover looks like. She said it's a skull on broken concrete. I don't know, like the skull would be white and like asphalt is black. So black and white, I feel like, is a pretty good contrast, don't you think?
It is.
She also said she's considering audiobooks. And Heather said, I was going to say you read audiobooks, Dal. And Heather also said, I definitely want to do audiobooks when I get there.
No problem.
MV McKenzie says, that's cool. Looks like audiobooks would definitely be a good option then. And she said,
it is.
Also, my book is not predictable. LOL, it's chaos.
Love it. Those are my favorites.
We love chaos. So fun pseudo announcement, I guess. During the stream, actually, because of I have a relative, my husband's grandpa has macular degeneration, so he is slowly losing his eyesight. And Dal has been kind enough to like help me with the audio reader stuff for him to set him up because he can no longer watch television and he enjoys listening to Westerns. But they were older, clearly an older couple. And so technology stuff is like really hard for them. So I reached out to Dal and she gave me a ton of resources. And through having a relative, going through all of this and having a friend, Dal, who's like, who struggles with this and talks about, oh yeah, well, it's like a robot that reads it to you. There's no like intonation. There's no like characterization or anything, but you can still read the books and yada, yada. It made me realize that I did not want to wait to develop an audiobook for Songs of Autumn. I wanted to try and have a simultaneous release on release day, which is November 21st of this year. And I have contracted with an audiobook narrator through ACX, and we are going to be starting the audiobook development process here shortly for my debut novel. And part of that was because how and people in my life, like I wanted them to be able to read and listen to my book. Like I didn't want them to have to listen to a robot. And it's insane to me that there aren't more audiobooks and stuff, just because there are so many people who it would benefit, and just your sales too, because like right now the market is not saturated with audiobooks. So like you have an opportunity, even from hey, I'm an authorpreneur and I'm trying to like sell books and stuff. Like I have an opportunity. There's not a ton of audiobooks being produced right now. None of quality, not of quality anyway. And so like I have the opportunity to be a real standout and to get real exposure for my book, just by trying to be exclusive. And it is expensive. Like there are ways for it to be expensive. The narrator that has kindly agreed to work with me on producing my audiobook is actually being really great. Like she's being really great about the terms and everything. And my cover designer, I had to resize all of my book trim sizes and stuff recently. And I was really worried that that was going to be an extra expense and all this other stuff. And she was so kind. She didn't realize that I worked in healthcare and have had to like restructure my whole launch because of the COVID pandemic. And when I kind of told her like, hey, I'm so sorry for the late email, I need to do this, yada, yada, she agreed to do all of my stuff like free of charge because I was working in healthcare. And I was able to save money on the cover stuff to be able to put that into the audiobook production, which not everyone is going to have that same opportunity. But
no,
it was like a personal win, not just from like a business point of view, but the fact that I wanted to be as inclusive as possible, like, with this book that I've putting out there. Like I've put so many years into it. I want to share it with people, The next question I have for you, Dal, is actually about you as a reader. As a reader, are there any like certain like themes or writing quirks, like we talked about, eyes are the window to the soul or whatever, like that you find particularly offensive as somebody from the blind or visually impaired community? Like, are there certain like things that really just like you sigh and you're like, again, or it just like triggers you, like when you're reading?
Oh yeah. Well, I talked about this before in like when we discussed the books by Richard Riordan. Everybody loves Percy Jackson. Oh, hang on again. Wait, my roommate is just no, 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 no. Sorry, sorry, sorry. So yeah, we were talking about the whole Percy Jackson thing, and every other monster was blind, and every other monster had to die, and it was totally okay. Like, if I see it a lot in fantasy more than any other genre, but or sci-fi even. But like, there's a lot of ableism going on that people with disabilities rather have to die or get cured. There's no in between. There's no
Yeah, the magic.
living with. Yeah, the cure it all. That living with a disability
Oh,
is
Daryl,
not an option because you have to fix it. Sorry.
sorry, I thought I lost you for a
Oh
second, but
God.
I didn't.
No, 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 I'm here. It's just internet problems, people. Internet problems. Yeah. So, like, the whole thing that we cannot live with a disability, that's not an option. People with disabilities have to get cured or get killed or whatever. But like, it's so dominant in literature. Like, it's very rare to see a disabled character just let it be disabled. Come on, like, it's not the end of the world. It is harder because the other pitfall that we can find is that the character is perfect and it's so inspirational and it's so good and everything is right despite their disability. And no, 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 that doesn't work like that either.
Yeah, that's a term that I hear a lot from disabled writers whenever they talk about like harmful tropes and stuff in fiction, specifically with like inspiration porn is like something that, they find pretty offensive. They find like the magic cure to their disability, like that's pretty offensive. Like, can't I just live normally? Like with my disability, like why do I have to be cured? I'm not broken, I'm disabled.
Yeah, yeah, I'm disabled. I have a hard time, I have a hard time with visual things, which is, I mean, it's a thing, I have a hard time reading physical books. I cannot read. I can. I have a magnifier glass. I could try reading a physical book, but it's going to take me so long that if I have the accessibility features, I'm going to use them.
Right. That was also something we said, like you see it a lot more in like fantasy, and this was something that we've talked about off stream like many times. Is that as a fantasy
Mhm.
writer, a lot of the mythology, like a lot of the mythology from different cultures, specifically like you brought up like Greek mythology and like the Cyclops being the monster and needing to be defeated and all of that, and he only has one eye, and the way to defeat him is to blind him and stuff like that. That's prevalent in so many different legends and mythologies and throughout so many cultures in the world. Because I remember you saying, a lot of the monsters and a lot of the bad guys and a lot of the people who are seen as like not good or evil or whatever, they have one eye, or the way that the hero defeats them in these stories is to blind them or whatever. And it's seen as this like thing. And that's a lot of times I find as a fantasy writer, and I've said this like so many times, but before you pointed it out to me, I didn't realize like these are myths and legends that inform world building for a lot of fantasy writers. And so
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
almost like if you're not being aware of, certain stereotypes and stuff, like even within classic, or ancient like texts or literature or whatever, you may be bringing some of those topics into and informing like your world building, and you could
Yes.
unintentionally be adding things that maybe you didn't intend to be, offensive or
A lot
excluding
of
members of
a lot
community
of
or
writers
communities, but like you
a
could be
lot of
unintentionally doing
a lot of writers don't have that intention. I remember the one time I made a very angry-ish review, and I do regret
that.
it, and
Not say anything.
I do regret it in the sense that I shouldn't have done that. It was a new author. I shouldn't have done that. But it was a book that I heard everybody saying it was promising. I got into the hype. I bought the book. I was excited, kind of. And the more I read into it, the more I felt disconnected. And I was like, I have to finish it because I have a very bad gut feeling about this. And yeah, near the end, the whole "you're vulnerable if you're blind" and blah blah blah. And I just like,
So,
I know, like, what I want to say is, like, I was aware that the author, because I know the author is an incredible person. I respect this person and I look up to the author. But
but since you brought it up, I do have a couple of questions, sort of for the other
yeah,
side of the argument here. So I know about the Celtic legend that actually informed the direct
the author.
villain
Yeah.
in the book, which was
Hmm.
from a Celtic legend, like the exact character and characterization and everything. Which
Hmm.
again, some of that mythology, like bleeding into narratives, which, maybe we don't mean to be, perpetuating stereotypes or whatever, but we might accidentally do that with certain things, right? Um, but
Exactly. I got informed about that later because we had a conversation about it, and I was informed of what happened. And then I understood, and I said, look, this person is amazing. Like, the intentions were never ill intended, that was not what the person meant when they wrote this book. But then again, this is what happened when people base their things in mythology. I mean, mythology comes from very distant times.
right, from a society in which if you were disabled, you were seen as lesser because you couldn't perform tasks that they felt that you needed to do to be a successful member in society.
Hmm.
Not saying you couldn't be a successful member of society, but it was infinitely more difficult, like in medieval times and stuff. For if
Yeah.
you were blind to be able to actually be successful and make a living and have a job, because a lot of the jobs were like labor intensive and very dangerous and things like that. The quote though that you're talking about from the book, and I wanted to ask you this even after you made the video, but I was like, I don't know if I should. Just
Ask
because
away.
you're you were so passionate about it, and I was like, oh goodness, I don't want her to think that I'm not listening to her point of view, but I just had, I guess, a follow-up question. So clearly you felt very strongly about it. It was a line that you had taken out of the book, and it was, you're vulnerable if you're blind. But the context for that line in the scene was that she was a fully sighted character who was learning combat, and the combat instructor was saying that basically compared to the other the whatever situation that she's in, that she would be more vulnerable in a situation where she couldn't rely on sight because she was a fully sighted character who used sight to throw.
Hmm.
And so my question is, like, is it like when you take that line out of context, like when you took that line out of context, I was like, that sounds really bad, but I read the book. And when I read the book, I didn't get that implication from it because it was a fully sighted character and the situation and the context of the scene. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like if it was a character who was partially blind or going blind, or that it was something that had to do with their identity, that it would have been more offensive. Like, why was that one line so triggering for you, considering the context? Like, I
It was the Absolutely, it was the combo. You are absolutely right about that, and I thank you for it, because that it was the combo of the whole book.
okay.
That was like the drop that, that spilled the glass for me. That was like, that's it, I'm done. That it wasn't just that line in particular.
It
It
was also
was like the
that led to
whole
the
book.
world building and the villain being partially blind and all that.
Yeah, and the whole book being so reliant on visuals from the
Gotcha.
very beginning. So, like it just struck me as, this person is so visual that, oh my god, I don't want to see her going blind. I don't wish her that, because my god, she will go crazy. That it. Yeah, I mean, it was the whole book, like the whole you know the focus on visuals from the very beginning. Everything was a visual description that took like paragraphs. I'm sorry, but that drags me nuts. Sorry. Sorry. And
Everyone
the
likes
whole
styles. That's absolutely valid. Like anything you say about your reading preferences is absolutely valid. I just wanted a better understanding, I guess, of your opinion.
yeah, and like so when the love interest was overly described, everything about the love interest was gorgeous. The love interest was perfect. I was like, oh, okay, can we just stop? Okay. And then the villain is partially blind. And then you're vulnerable if you're blind. I was like, dude, but like, can we stop it? It was like the whole.
My book so much.
It was the whole package of the book. It was the whole package that had me very uneasy. The thing is, this author has balls, and I respect the author. I maybe didn't like the book. That's fine. But I do like the author. I do respect the author. I think she is incredibly talented. Nicole, if you ever stumble upon this, I do love you.
I was not going to bring this up at all. I was actually trying to be very careful to not even bring this subject up because I was like, Nicole would kill me if I brought this up.
But like people would bring no, Lauren, people would bring it up because like I was very harsh. I was.
I had a question. I wanted to understand more, like, because you were very passionate in your video, and I was kind of like, okay, but you know,
I was very harsh.
So I just wanted to understand your perspective more, I guess.
No, absolutely. But like she.
So like we're talking about how visual that book was, and again, like the world, like we've talked about like mythology, books on like mythology, like world building and stuff, especially for fantasy novels, and how that can be problematic and different stuff like that. But like, so what because you're saying all of these things about her visual writing and like describing the love interest as like handsome all the time and whatever, like I do that a lot in my writing. I'm a fully cited author. I had a lot of really visual descriptions that I tried to lean more towards like the lyrical side because of themes of the book, but like it is very visual because that's how I experience the world. And there's a very strong romantic subplot. In fact, you could probably consider this like a YA romantic fantasy, like because that's part of like the whole thing or whatever. And so she really talks about how hot he is a lot and stuff. And so I'm sitting there going, you would hate my book because I feel like I do a lot of the same things. So my question is like, what things can we do to be more inclusive in our writing, or like
don't do the overly visual romantic part contrasted with a blind villain, and I think I'm fine.
Well, but I do have overly romantic descriptive parts, and like, but that's sort of
but you don't have this blind villain subplot, do you?
No,
like the whole contrast thing of love is beautiful and visual, villain blind and evil. That had me really.
So I feel like I'm understanding your point of view better now, just because like I heard like she describes the character as hot so much, and it was so visual writing, and I'm like, oh God, I do those things. Like, oh no, are people gonna be offended by my writing style? Like,
no.
Like because like that's how I walk around in the world. It's how I experience it. So like
it's more a me. Okay, it's more a me thing. It's more a Dal thing. I have been bullied all my life for being blind and then for my eyes looking different. The main character of the book was mocking the villain for missing an eye. That also had me like, okay, I mean, you didn't have to go there.
I got you.
So when
your point of view so much more now.
Yeah, like what the problem that I do have is not that it is this contrast of love is beautiful and hot and visual and sexy and but the blind person is evil and the villain and they are ugly and they're it kind of brings back my life experience in a way that I remember I am supposed to be the bad guy in every fucking book. It's like, yeah, okay, I see it. And then it brings back this feeling of I'm being bullied even in books. Okay. And it's a me thing. It's very personal too, in the sense that
you're not being, I guess, valued, I guess, probably, right?
yeah, like this thing that, disabled people are just evil monsters, evil, ugly, creepy monsters that have to be killed or defeated or whatever. And like, I mean, yeah, sure, I have been bullied all my life, so yeah, okay, I get it. So I try to go into books to escape into this world and learn new things, and I find the same thing, and it's like, okay, let's try to read another book then. It's it's the villains always have something about their eyes, always. And it's just
Well,
like,
my villain has something about his eyes, but I can't disclose to you because it would be a spoiler. And it's not anything bad though. Like his eyes aren't
no,
very pretty.
I suppose it would be like I think it would be like heterochromia, that maybe the one eye is one color and the other is another. It could be something like that, but the villain always has something about their eyes.
Well,
It's always the
yeah,
villain.
there's a connection made between the villain and another character because they have the same eye color.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'll say about that.
No, it's fine. I mean, yeah, I'm not here to police books. That's another thing that I have to clarify.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just my
It really can seem very much so like I don't need to justify the choices that I made in my story.
no, not at all.
Like even if there's a reviewer like who reads it and says, "Well, I didn't like all of these things." Well, that's fine. You don't have to like all of those things. This is
Absolutely.
my story, and I told it the way I wanted to tell it. So like I'm not trying to get justification by saying that. I just you hear things and you start to go, question yourself as the author, like, were these choices like unconsciously, whatever, like, because you want to be aware of the world around you and other people who exist
Yeah.
in you.
It is mostly stories that are mythology based, because all the mythological monsters are blind or have another problem, or because monsters, the monsters were an analogy for people who were less than.
Her eyes, you turn to stone. Like that was
Yeah.
like there is
Yeah.
a thing about eyes. Like I didn't realize it until we had that conversation. You mentioned though that like you were bullied about being blind, and the video that you made that you were very passionate about, that you felt certain things after reading a book. And I do have to ask, just like, do people say sometimes that you're being like too sensitive, or like,
Of course they do. Of course they do.
how does that make you feel whenever you're just trying to express your opinion as like a partially or mostly blind person, like living in the world, trying to make their way?
I think it's just an excuse to brush me off, because they don't care they are not like you. They don't care to understand. So I understand that they don't want to understand, and they just brush me off like, oh, you're too sensitive. Okay.
Does it make you feel, I don't know, bad or mad or anything, like when they like
used to it used to, of course. I mean, when I was younger and still learning things, it used to make me very sad. It used to make me feel that whatever I have to say is not valued or not valid, or I am just being sensitive because I am also a woman, so, she's just being a woman, the other stereotype. And it did hurt. I lost a couple of friends. Before I started AuthorTube, I used to have a friend who wanted to write books as well. We were very good friends or whatever, but when I started telling her about this Harry Potter, especially Harry Potter, about all the blind monsters, all the blind creepy creatures, my back then friends started invalidating all my points because I was just being too negative. That was the word that my ex-friend used on me. And it did make me feel like whatever I have to say has no context, like has no value whatsoever, because I am just being negative again. And well, of course, we are no friends anymore, because I understand that this person honestly doesn't give a shit. And we don't need to continue a friendship that isn't healthy for either or, so And so it used to hurt, but now I understand, and I do respect that not everybody gives a fuck, you know? Sorry for cussing, but
No,
like,
you're fine.
not everybody cares, not everybody wants to care, not everybody wants to get to know your perspective, and that's fine. I mean, I appreciate when people do. Like, this stream on its own, it's fantastic, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity. So it used to hurt, and now it's a little bit of an indifference. Like, well, I mean, they have the right to not care. It's fine.
Talking about like things that you've overcome, because we talked about like how you adjust with like your writing and reading, and
Hmm.
how you've had to use like different things to help you with that. As a YouTube content creator, as a member of the AuthorTube community, like let's switch focus and talk about like AuthorTube
Hmm.
for a second, because like we're both members of YouTube and AuthorTube. Like, are there any specific obstacles you had to overcome like within our community or to be online and stuff? Like, have there been certain struggles to like find a platform or a voice or like anything like within AuthorTube, like specifically that you've struggled with?
Yeah, I have a thing that, for example, I want to support every stream and
Mhm.
every video and everything. But sometimes I'm not on the laptop. Sometimes I'm just on the phone. So I can have only one video going on at once. So I have a little bit of time restrictions. That's a personal obstacle that I wish I could support even more people, but sometimes I really can't because I'm just on the phone.
I mean, I can
Uh,
totally relate to that. Like every once in a while, I'm able to pop in and like a stream and say hi or whatever. But like, I work a full time job, and
mhm.
my husband has an autoimmune disease, and I have a toddler at home, and like, if it's not within certain windows, like, there's no way I can be online and seeing patients
Yeah,
like at the same time. Like,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, but that's different. But like when it comes to the visual part, um, I don't find like YouTube, because I have been using YouTube for way before I was Dulce Suruno, before I started with my pen name. I already had a YouTube. I already did things, but um, so I know how to use the platform, and I know how to use it from the phone, so that's fine. And I like I said, I know a little bit of color theory, I know a little bit of design, a little bit, so like I could work out my thumbnails and my old style silhouette video, the talking silhouette thing. No one was doing that, so yeah, my window. I miss my window. Yeah.
so awesome.
Now I am doing the Aurora Borealis lamp with myself as a silhouette, or just the Avatar cartoon thing. But like I know how to work my way around it, because like I know that I'm different. I'm very well aware that I'm different. So I use it to, I wouldn't say my advantage, but like I use it in the way that it makes me stand out a little bit visually, because like I am different and I embrace it. I
Right.
think that's absolutely okay. I don't have to do talking head videos if I don't feel like comfortable with it. Like, it doesn't have to be um the same as the visual people, and people who wear makeup and stuff. I don't have to, and it's perfectly fine. So YouTube, Instagram is harder for me, because Instagram is, like I said, I don't have control over what people put in their own Instagram at all. So sometimes people pop images that have very little fonts, the tiny fonts that I cannot read, not even with the magnifier, because the text is very tiny. And so not even the magnifier works. The selfies, I don't know how selfies work. So people's faces, I don't know what to do with that picture. I don't know what to comment. I don't know what to say. Give me a moment, please. Give me a moment, please. Household stuff.
Go ahead. I am so curious to know which characters, villains, monsters she was talking about in Harry Potter. I keep thinking about it. I'm like, Dementors, Basilisk. Who else?
The blind acromantula thing, the leader of the acromantulas was also blind.
I mean, you
Yeah.
said it, and like I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. It's such wild when you start making connections. But the Dementors,
Yeah.
Fabulous Acromantula. Anyone else?
The partially blind dragon that was imprisoned in Gringotts, that was also partially
Oh,
blind.
that's right. I forgot the Gringotts dragon was like blind. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, basically all the creatures were blind. I mean, she couldn't go with anything else. They were all
So
blind.
many things. Wild, man.
I
It's
mean,
so
she's clearly ableist and other things, so it doesn't surprise me when the whole situation with her, like the recent situations, came out. It
yeah.
never surprised me because I mean, it's her. It's her. I know what she wrote in those books, so I'm not surprised
So definitely,
at all.
I
I mean,
still love the books. I still love the world because it was a childhood favorite. Like because I read it when I was a kid. And of course, I didn't pick up on any of
mhm.
these things as a child, an 11-year-old reading these
No,
books.
you were a child. It's different. Like, yeah.
Clearly wouldn't. So, like, I have a nostalgic love for these books in the world and whatever. Um, I recently reread another favorite book of mine from when I was like in like middle school that was written 20 years ago. And I'm planning on doing a review of it because I feel like all of my childhood favorite books like have not aged well. They have not held up. And like this one actually somewhat
Mm.
held up. And so like I was like, finally one that isn't like awful 20 years
Which
later.
one?
So it's actually, I don't know if anyone knows of it. I have it literally right here. It's called Old Magic by an Australian author named Marianne Curley. And
I have to
it's,
read that.
it's basically a time travel, paranormal romance novel. Like, it's a young adult novel, and it's about two characters in present day Australia in a small town. And they come to find out that there's a curse on one of them. And in the interest of trying to break the curse, about halfway through, they have to go back in time to the 12th century to break the curse. And there's magic and stuff in it. But it's very like pagan magic. Like it's very much so like Wiccan magic. Like they call on elements. Like it's more healing, white magic, like stuff like that. In nature, inspired by that anyway, which I always thought was really cool. And yeah, it held up well for me just because it wasn't turfs all the way down.
Turds all the way down. Yeah.
Like out of all of my childhood books, like it actually has held up the best so far. Just because like there's so many bad themes and stuff explored in a lot of my childhood books that I read that I loved. And I'm like, how did I not notice this as a child? Like I was being influenced and never knew.
Because most of it is not ill intended.
Yeah.
It just comes from distant times because people are romanticizing distant times because we never liked the time when we're living in. We never liked our own time.
Well, 2020 sucks.
Yeah.
Really.
I'm not really talking 2020. I'm talking like in general. We
Yeah.
never like our times. We always look back to the past because the past was better. We always look into the future because the future might be better. We never like our times. So people tend to look into the past. Some people, not all of them, but many people look into the past because it was more romantic, because whatever. And they bring back all these other things that probably don't really fit with our times.
Yeah.
So there is always a price to pay. That's what I say all the time. There's always a price to pay. Because, yes, there was more creative freedom. And I say this very openly and unapologetically. There was a lot more creative freedom in the 60s, in the 50s. And for artists, the 60s was the bomb. So now things are a little bit more
Overwhelming.
restrained.
So
Mm, things are a little bit more restrained, more predictable, more automated because technology. Music is a lot more predictable. Books are a lot more predictable. Like the traditional publishing market is a nightmare. Um, I'm just gonna say this, and I'm not saying this with a like a bad intention or like I'm not saying this in a sour feel because no, actually I'm very thankful for what just happened recently. I got a feedback from one of the agencies that I was querying to,
yeah,
and this of course it was a rejection. I'm not getting an agent, but the this particular agent took the time to actually give me something. And the agent said, it feels like you know exactly what you're doing, but you're leaving your readers a little bit behind. Because I'm being too hard, maybe? Because I'm not predictable. You see what I'm saying? Like the market, like what they say is that they don't have a place for me at the time. Like they like my writing, they like my thing, it just doesn't fit with them at this time. Which
Burrito
means,
here. He says
yeah,
hi everyone. Hi
sorry?
Chris. Burrito
Hi,
Chris
Chris.
chat. He said hello.
Hello, Burrito Chris. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I mean, the feedback, the feedback that I got was very positive in the sense that they can see that my writing is actually improving, which makes me very happy. It makes me understand that my efforts are not in vain, that I am working on my craft, that I'm on the right path. But now I am also leaving the readers behind. I am a little playing maybe too smart, which the market currently doesn't like. So maybe in another era, like my mother's time, maybe I would have done well because there was a lot more creative freedom in the traditional publishing market.
Yeah.
So, but back in the day, and this is where I'm going with all this, back in the day, I didn't have this technology to be able to write.
Right. Right.
There
So
is
there's always
always a price, there is always a price to pay, always.
um
So
so to switch tracks here real quick.
mhm,
We've talked a lot about like the things that aren't being done well as far as like harmful tropes and world
yeah,
building myths that are not very disability friendly to begin with, and we've talked about like obstacles that you've had and being bullied and like stuff like that. But
mhm.
now I want to kind of like switch tacks to like the positive side. So
Oh
like
yeah,
what are
please.
some things that AuthorTube or being a YouTube content creator or just being on this platform at all, like what are some of the positive things that have come from that, like that you see
This
for like blind
community,
people?
this community is in its vast majority, because I mean, we will always have a bad apple, we will always have something going on, we cannot avoid it. It's the nature of humanity. But in the vast majority of this community, people are amazingly supportive, very welcoming, very understanding. Like, look at this stream. Look at Lauren. She invited me to do this. Like, this in itself is proof that AuthorTube is a very welcoming community. And the other positive thing, I met my editor thanks to AuthorTube. My editor for my short story, they are helping me with my short that's coming out this Halloween. We started doing the Google Docs process. I'm going through all the corrections and suggestions. It's taking me a little bit longer than I expected because I have household duties,
Right.
things like that. And I'm currently undergoing some hormonal imbalance, and I'm going through a lot of fatigue. So I'm having a hard time at the moment. That's on me. But but I am going through my edits. I'm super excited to see that the editor could actually work on my thing. It wasn't that bad. I mean, punctuation. I'm learning a lot about punctuation because I am that kind of person who's learning as I go. again, it's not just my blindness, it's also the fact that I spoke different languages. The
Right. You have the
punctuation
second language, you have the visual impaired, obstacle to
not only that, like when you speak different languages, like just a side note, but like Spanish and Italian, and I think Finnish too, like they have different punctuation methods than the English one. When you're doing your dialogue tags, when you're doing like it, the punctuation style varies. So that's another thing.
Sean is in the chat. Professor What Now
Hi, Sean.
in the chat. He says, better late than never, hello, darlings. And then he called me his beloved.
Of course.
Heather also said, I need to do this too, Dow. You are invited whenever you can.
Of course, I make time for everybody. I love this community.
So
I love how welcoming it is.
So, what do you think, I guess, AuthorTube does well for members of the blind or visually impaired community, like as a whole? Do you think that it's because
spoken videos?
Okay, that's
absolutely
what I was trying to ask about. Is kind of like because if I have viewers who are blind or visually impaired, like I want to be able to do things for them. Like if I'm creating content and taking the time to like put these videos out there for like writing advice and stuff, I want them to be able to use it as a resource, like a free resource. Like that's the whole point of doing it, And so there were a few things you said earlier in the stream that I just kind of want to like say again because they were so smart and insightful. So things I didn't think about, like things like cover reveal videos for YouTube content.
Just tell us what's in the cover. Just tell us what's in the cover. Just tell us.
Just show it, describe it. You have like something on the screen, like a picture or a chart or a graph or something like describing what's on there. Use language to actually like outline or paint a picture of the video. Like those things I wasn't very aware of when I was making videos before, and that's definitely something I'm gonna like be more aware of in the future. So like, yeah, so spoken videos, that's a really good thing too. Do you think that writing advice videos, if the writing advice is, not totally like disability unfriendly, but like writing advice videos, like those are some of the things that would be helpful to the blind or visually impaired community?
We need the writing advice. We need to have a little bit of writing advice that is not so one-on-one anymore. The one-on-one writing advice that is like very basic. We need a little bit beyond that at this stage of AuthorTube, because I mean all the basics have been told already.
Right.
So today, for example, we're having, so just to give a quick shout out, today is the day of Wordstock, the 5th edition Wordstock by Story Detective. Today they are discussing story structure. So this time of this stream recording, they are discussing story structure. And I think it's fantastic that Robert, Story Detective, created this project because it gives you in-depth information that you don't get in those 101 basic AuthorTube advice videos, because like we already have writers who are no beginners anymore,
right?
And so you go a little bit more in depth, and like just considering that there are writers who belong into other communities. Like for example, there was an international tag. I did that. It's a fun thing that the tags. AuthorTube has a lot of tags.
Yeah.
And I did the international writer tag. Yeah, I did the international writer tag, and there was a question where they ask you if you could also tell it in your native language, and I said I will not do that because I don't disclose my native language. I'm an alien. I come from Andromeda. I don't tell, but like I speak many, and instead of going here on a display of all the stuff that I can say without no one understanding things, I will just leave it in English, also because I have blind friends that cannot read subtitles. So like other language YouTube channels, that if it's a language that I don't speak, say for example, I have friends over in Sweden, shout out to Marcus Regis and his wife Matilda. the nerdy book nerd. If they start, for example, doing AuthorTube in Swedish, they're gonna leave me behind because I cannot read the subtitles. So
Yeah.
basically, I wouldn't be able to watch their videos anymore, which is very sad.
Well, here's
So,
a comment about subtitles, just because you brought it up. She
mhm,
said, I was going to say earlier, also the closed captioning for videos can be not so great for the deaf community. It's not accurate, but it can be fixed or corrected. That's something that I've been wondering about how to broach, because like I actually
I
at my
wanted to go
job I
touch
learned
on that.
ASL because I noticed that there was a need for, just for patients who are deaf before their interpreters,
Hmm.
their appointments. If they have a simple question like where's the bathroom, or just to be greeted, or to be able to be told like when their interpreter was coming to meet them for their appointment, so they could just have expectations, because not all of them have family members um, who are hearing. And so I learned some conversational ASL, at my job, just so I could, do simple things like that. I'm not by any means fluent. I'm probably pretty terrible at it, but I get my point across most of the time. And
Hmm.
I think that it really brightens their day to just be greeted and to say like, can I help you with anything? It's nice to have you here. This is my name in case you need anything, like, until your interpreter gets here or whatever. And so
Hmm.
like I've gone back and I close caption all of my videos because I want them to be.
My content is not very accessible for the deaf community, and that's something that hurts me
Yeah.
personally because I wish it were, but because of the way that I play around my persona and how I market myself and how I don't show myself, and it's an avatar and it's a silhouette, you know what I'm saying? It just leaves the deaf community behind in the sense that I have a hard time transcribing my videos. I don't know how to do that. And from the phone, it's gonna take forever.
Well,
So
I
like
closed caption all of my videos, but it's closed caption through YouTube, and 9 times out of 10, because of my Southern accent, um, it's wrong and it's confusing.
mhm,
I go back and like
mhm.
watch something with the closed caption on so that I can see if it's even somewhat accurate, and it's like not, and it
It
upsets
isn't.
me, but it's kind of like at the same time, like I really don't know how to edit my videos very well yet. Like I'm
What
still
I
learning,
what
like
I
everyone.
try to do, what I try to do with the closed captions, because I have them, I enabled it. I cannot transcribe the videos though. I can't. And to the deaf community, I apologize because I just have a hard time doing all that from the phone. I apologize. What I try to do to compensate a little bit is I enunciate my words. I try to pronounce them as calm and as clear as I possibly can.
It sounds
Try.
like my book. Look, my book
I
title,
know.
Songs of
I
Autumn.
know.
Every time I say my book title, it closed captions it as Songs of Bottom, like your rear end. Every time.
Oh my god.
Cry. Every time. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
It's horrible. I'm so sorry. And we have no control. They have a hashtag. The deaf community had a hashtag going on. No more craptions. It's still going, but like in my particular case, I am very sorry that my content is not 100% accessible. It will always hurt. I am very sorry. I never do it with a bad intention, and I hope that at some point I can find a solution for this. But I am still a very small YouTuber. So, for example, paying someone to transcribe my videos would be an option. Excuse me, would be an option, but I don't have the money to do that. So at the moment, I can't.
The
But I
sounds
wish
like
it were a solution.
she
Hmm.
said, it sounds like a hell of a novel, but not what I was expecting. Yeah, me neither, Sean.
Songs of Bottom.
And then, and
That's
then
not exactly.
Heather was like, I saw that at Lauren Severe. So like she literally has watched my videos and seen how the closed captions is trying to like defame my own book because it cannot hear me say autumn. Like, and I try so hard to enunciate and to do really well because I'm aware that it does it, and every time, no matter how careful I am,
That's
still
not your fault. That is not your fault. So this, I can say that author BC Brown from BC Brown Books, because I have talked about this with her because she is a hard of hearing person, and I was immediately apologizing to her, like, I'm so sorry, like, I know my videos are not transcribed, I'm so sorry, because I mean, I look up to her. I love BC Brown. She's like a writer's sister to me, and she's my weird sister, you know. And she said I have a closed caption service that is better than the captions from YouTube. So like it's okay. You have your captions enabled, so it works better. So she has her own service that helps her, you know. So in her case, I'm okay. I'm doing okay. But I know that not every person has those access, you know, those services, so they will have to put up with the captions, and it's it still hurts me because it does hurt, you know. Like what I try to do with my videos, because I know that I have blind people or visually impaired people who watch my stuff because we watch each other's things, is that whenever I put something on screen that I think it's important, like if it's not important, or if it's just like for sighted people and the blind people already know me, like my social media links, they already know where to find me. It's Dal Cecil Bruno, they will just find me. So I don't go over descriptive with that. But for example, when I do post something on screen that I am talking about my photography, at least I make a comment that for example, I try to say what the picture is when it's relevant to the content. I try to describe it because I know that there are blind people watching. Most of what I do is for sighted people. Okay, but when I think it's for everybody, I describe what I'm saying, because you know they cannot see it, or maybe like me, they didn't produce it, so they don't know what's in the picture, or kind of, or halfway. So I try to say what's in the picture. And I also, because I am just very vocal about my things, I say what it means, things like that. I just try to be more, I mean, it makes the video longer, but it duh but it's, I try to be more descriptive, uh, vocally descriptive of whatever it is that I have in there.
We have some more comments in the chat. Let's go over those. What Now says, I know this is a serious and poignant conversation, but I'm deeply concerned about Songs of Bottom. I imagine it's haunting.
I mean, look. Oh my god. Well, I mean, but I do appreciate the humor. Thank you for bringing it up.
Heather said, I'm wondering what it's going to do with my title. Chris says, BC Brown has that good sass. And Heather responded, BC Brown is awesome. And What Now asks Chris, what's the grading system of sass quality? Well, there's Southern sass. That's a level. That's the bless your heart sass.
Yeah. Oh my god.
What that really means, right? It does not bless your heart. It means
yeah.
In Southern. So that passive aggressive, super polite sass. And then there's like Catholic guilt sass. That's a thing. That's thing. That is a real thing.
Unfortunately,
kind of out there.
You have Dal level sass, because Dal is very vocal, and they Dal level sass.
I don't know what
I'm
makes
just gonna.
sass good or bad though. I don't know. I don't know how to determine whether sass is good or bad.
It's a little bit of a what I did in that harsh video that I'm never gonna do again when I was talking about this character that was like the Russian of the novel, and I was like, dude, the whole thing that it covers the whole of Eastern Europe, and I took a shot like well, that's us. But what I was doing is like every stereotype of Eastern Europeans turned into Russians. It's like that means cheers in Hungarian, and it's a sarcasm. It's like, yeah, cool, cheers, drink, you know, like take a shot whenever whenever stereotypes arise, and it's like, yeah, and people cannot even pronounce that thing. And so that's dull level sass. It's like I'm just calling out your bullshit.
Being
So it's
multicultural, sassy.
yeah.
You're being
Yeah,
multiculturally sassy.
kinda, yeah.
I love it
But
so
it's
much.
I mean it was a part of diversity that had me very uneasy, that also let me down, because I was looking forward to that character, and it turns out that it's just another Russian stereotype, and I was like, oh my god, okay, please.
What now said Liverpool sass is banned under the Geneva Convention, which is awesome. And Heather said, at the moment, a word in my title is in another language. So yeah, that
Yeah, Welsh, which is a very difficult language.
What?
Welsh, I think. Heather
Yeah.
Heather has a book that has a lot of Welsh influence. So
and Burrito Chris says to Sean, whatever the grading system is, you get an A. So what Professor right now has an A in SAS, which means he is now a doctor professor of SAS. He's a SAS hole.
How do I even how do I even talk to that person on a daily basis? I don't understand.
Aw, he's so lovely. So to kind of refocus, because we got off topic, having fun with our friends in the chat. But we've talked about a bunch of the stuff that I had questions about or I wanted to know more about already, and I learned a bunch of stuff I didn't expect to about like thumbnails, cover reveal videos, and like describing things, just and covers in general, like how to market that to where it would reach the widest audience and be inclusive for everybody. What I guess I want us to refocus on now is like
writing.
Yeah.
Maybe blind characters and things like that.
Oh, yeah. So that was something I wanted to talk about on stream that we talked about off stream. Dow, and again, my relative who has the macular degeneration issue and stuff. I'm inspired to, in this series of novels that I'm writing, in book 3 or book 4, there's a character that I want to introduce who is going to be blind, and clearly I will have sensitivity readers and things of that nature, just because like with any representation in my book, I want to make sure that it's not something that will end up being harmful to the community. I want it to be, something that I'm proud of, and that people won't be upset by or anything like that. And that was another reason I had wanted to have these discussions and everything, was to have a better understanding of a way that you experience things, and like different things, like awkward things. We were talking about like Toph from Avatar.
Yeah.
How, like, was like, do you see this? And like holding up a paper to her, and she was like, nope. Like, I don't. Sounds like paper. Like, don't know what's on
Well, it sounds like a sheet of paper, but I think you're referring to what's on the sheet of paper.
Right. Yeah. So there was like awkward moments. Still, like, it wasn't like, the blind character was just this whole just paragon of blindness or whatever. There was still awkward stuff.
No, one of my favorite.
Go ahead.
And she's like, "Oh, you saved
me." Let's see.
Did you lose me?
I did. I lost you for a second.
Are you back? Are we back?
You're back.
I'm back. Yeah, my favorite part, like one of my favorite awkward blind moments was when Suki rescued her. Like, when she was drowning and she's like, "Oh, Sokka, you saved me!" Mwah! And he's like, "Actually, it's me." He's like, "Okay, you can let me drown now." That that is so true. But
So,
okay, she's completely blind. She's
yeah,
like pitch black blind. She can't see nothing.
yeah,
I can see. I would have noticed if that wasn't Soka because of how she has her face painted and stuff. I could
right,
I could have noticed that. I
right.
wouldn't know which one of the warriors she was. I wouldn't have noticed, but I know it would have been one of the Kyoshi warriors.
Yeah.
So
Val, did I lose you again?
so how blind is your character?
So I am
You know.
literally still in the drafting what
Oh
now
God.
slash class hole. And Heather said when
Yeah.
I moved, she saw the entirety of my shirt and she loved it. Thank you, Heather. It's yellow and purple, and it's got a purple state of Louisiana on it. Um, it's one of my favorite
Yeah.
Fellowship Football game shirts that I'm just wearing because it's the weekend. And it's hot
Hmm.
as hell down here. Anyway,
Yeah.
so the character, I'm thinking of naming him Kai, but I'm not settled on that. And there's still so much, like, I'm drafting book
So
3
many
right now.
guys in fantasy. So
Yeah,
many guys.
I
It's a
know.
popular name in fantasy.
I had the idea to maybe like do a play on like Bastien, kind of thing. Like maybe his name is Sebastian, and they call him Bastien, because
Mhm.
Sebastian has like ties with the Crab and the Little Mermaid, and he's going to be the captain of the ship, a 300-ton frigate. Actually, he's a smuggler, and so I kind of thought that would be cute. But then I was like, no, there's so many like I feel like that would be just too obvious. And so I was like, Kai, it's short, it's simple, there are certain influences with like the sea and stuff with the meaning behind the name. So I was kind of like, okay, maybe that. But I'm not sold on that name yet. Like there's so much about
Mm.
this character that I have yet to figure out because I'm still like in the brainstorming development part because this is going to be like book 4 and book 1's not even out yet. Um, but he is the captain of a ship. He is so my idea, and this is going to change obviously and evolve as I figure everything out. But my idea is that in the context of this world, magic is a natural resource and it's running out. And magic runs all the natural processes in the world. So, like, it changes the seasons, it helps the
Mhm.
sun rise and set every day, and it helps the tides turn. So, the tides are super unpredictable because they're running out of magic and they're not turning the way that they're supposed to. And it causes like all of these issues like it causes like tsunami waves and it causes whirlpools like to pop up out of nowhere. And so like the seas are really, really dangerous and it's really hard to travel anywhere by ocean. Like that's part of why like this kingdom feels so cut off from the rest of the world is because of the fact that like the seas are so unpredictable. It's really very hard to like traverse them.
Okay.
There's not a lot of magic, which is all like commentary on climate change.
Yeah, I like this analogy. I like the concept.
And so Kai not only is a blind captain, a smuggler, because he's like going to other kingdoms and countries and islands and stuff, and like being able to trade and do whatever. Um, he's also like basically has like one of the most dangerous jobs in the entire universe that I've built.
Mhm.
And so he's blind whenever he is on his boat and in the ocean, because of the way that I built the magic system. There are people in the world that are called black bloods, and basically people who have magic or can use magic, it comes at a price for them. So like there are different types of black bloods. There are berserkers where basically like if somebody punched them in the face, they could turn pain into strength and speed. They could be really strong and really fast. So the more pain they experience, the stronger and faster they can be. And then there's like healers. So they turn like love into being able to heal somebody. There's a traveler who he's a very interesting character throughout the whole series named Silas, and he's their leader. There's only one traveler in the entire Black bloodline, and he's been alive for like thousands of years. But he looks like a little kid. It's very interesting. And he like his price is he can travel like forward and backward in time. He can travel to different places. He can travel wherever he wants to through this place called the Mists. But every time he does it, it costs a year of his life. And so he doesn't do it very often. So he looks like a little kid, even though he's been around like thousands of years. And Kai is going to be a type of black blood that I haven't settled on the name yet, but basically he's going to be able to control the wind and tides to be able to steer his ship whenever he uses his magic. But whenever he uses his magic, he's completely blind. So if something happens or there's like an enemy approaching or something, like he all he can do is like all he can do is control like the tides and the wind. Like that's how he steers his ship. Everything else he has to deal with like on his own. And basically the more he uses it, the more permanent his sight loss is. So it's degenerative, kind of like Pops and his macular degeneration.
Or so he
at
so
least
let me see. Okay. So he is without the magic, he is not blind.
Yeah. But because he has been using it as a smuggler, he's still partially blind. Like when we meet him and stuff, he's still partially blind whenever he's not using his magic. And the more he uses it, the worse his sight gets until one day he'll be fully blind and he won't have his sight at all.
Okay, that's very interesting, and I love the analogy.
Yeah.
I can see where it comes from. I can totally see like where you got inspired from. And you have what I think you would
to be fleshed out. I'm aware. I'm aware.
No, but no, that's absolutely fine. I love when these things happen. Like when you get inspired from something in your real life, I love it. I do that all the time. My only thing that I would advise you to do is like, how much can he see? What can he see? Like, can he see colors? Can he see contrast? What cannot? What things he cannot see?
Yeah.
You have to be like very write it down or make like a section on his character profile or something where you're very aware of what he can and cannot see, so you keep a consistency across whatever your plot line is of what he can and cannot see, because consistency is the only thing that will make it believable instead of a plot convenience, because that can also be a pitfall.
Yeah. I totally understand. I get that. Like I said, I'm trying so hard to flesh him out. Like he literally, I had this idea for him and I have maybe brainstormed on him for like 10 minutes, all of 10 minutes before I hopped on the stream. So there's a lot I'm aware like I need to research and do, and that I need to
You can always ask me. You can always ask me.
Absolutely somebody that I plan on reaching out to whenever I have a draft and he's actually like a character that's written down, or if I have questions about what some obstacles for him may be or anything like that. Like I plan on reaching out to you and, just different people that I know, and definitely sensitivity readers before this book is ever out in the world. For sure. Just because like in book one, like I have, LGBTQ plus and POC representation. I always so one of the main characters is going to go through some transitions in later books that pretty much directly mirrors my husband's struggles with this autoimmune disease. And and basically like what that's going to look like for us as a family and stuff. And so I'm excited to write that arc too, because he's like fully able in book 1, but that's because my husband was fully able like whenever we first met and stuff. And so like a lot of my real life stuff and people that I care about and struggles that we've experienced end up in my books in some sort of analogy form, or
Absolutely.
just because like they say write what you know, and these are things that are like really near and dear to my heart that like I hold really close to my heart, not because it's the only thing I know. Like it's still within a magical world, it's still within my own little kingdom, that I rule and whatever, and I'm still making plenty of changes. It's not like every single thing that happens to me winds up in a book, but but yeah, so I'm excited about Kai and about moving forward and learning about how to write him realistically and, with intention. And
the blind awkward moments.
Yes, I'm excited about those. I'm also excited about the fact that like his blindness to a certain extent, not fully, but has been a choice. Like he's felt stronger being blind than being sighted because he feels more at home on the ocean and on his boat than he does on land. And so like, every time he chooses to get on that boat, he's making a decision to, basically to further his blindness, and it doesn't bother him. He doesn't see that as something that is going to impact negatively his quality of life. And that's something that I'm excited to explore too. Somebody who's proud to be who they are and doesn't see blindness as a flaw,
I like this because it ties back to my comment on there's always a price to pay. It really it ties back to that perception that I have of the world, because like that's, I mean, I love our living in our times because I have all the technology to make all these new friends from all over the world and have this community and blah blah blah. But I have lost a lot of that creative freedom that artists in other decades had. But like if I were an artist in those other decades, I wouldn't, I wouldn't have the technology to even do the art that I want to do. So it's like, so there is always for people with disabilities, there will always be um, a compromise, like a sacrifice, so to speak, or like a price to pay. There will always be something that you will lose, and that's something that a lot of us, not saying all of us, but a lot of us have to, deal with.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the blindness, but for example, all my awkwardness in real life interactions, it's really awkward because I cannot read body language, I cannot read facial expressions. I can
Right.
see where the face is. I can see people's faces in the sense that I know where your face is, but
Right.
I don't know what your face is saying. So sometimes I
Social
just don't know.
for you to pick up on then, right?
I am terrible with social cues. Terrible. And I'm very aware of it.
Considered, like if you can't see somebody's like facial expression, like you can't pick up on social cues. Like you don't know if somebody's like making a disgusted face when they sip their drink. Like those are things that I never would have considered until you just said that to me.
Yeah. And I know that like
we've been on
people
stream
say,
for 2 hours.
oh, we have been, well, we should be wrapping up soon.
It's almost dinner and dodo time for little man. So we are going to wrap up soon. Dodo is like to go to sleep. Fey dodo is like a party, but dodo is bedtime. And for those of you who don't speak Louisiana. But yeah, so we are going to have to wrap up. Sal, I would love to do more streams like this in the future, talking about like, hard-hitting stuff, or I guess hard-hitting stuff, but just having conversations that I feel like are beneficial to learn about different perspectives and the way that other people interact in the world. And I'm so thankful that you came on the stream with me. I love you.
I'm very thankful for this.
You are one of the most precious people to me. I mean, honestly, and I'm just really grateful that you spent time talking to me today. But I want you to go ahead first and I guess do your outro, plug all of your things because you're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you for making this. Like, I love the opportunity to just talk, casually discuss things and being open and share and also learn from you because like I have a lot to learn. Never think that I don't because I do. There's a lot for me to learn too. So I'm very thankful for this whole discussion thing. I hope we can do this again. Maybe you can come up on one of my streams, whatever you want. We can figure out something. Yeah, so I am Dal Cecil Bruno, the partially blind alien who's a known voices author, aka the ace from space. I write primarily science fiction, but I also like to explore other genres in my short stories. I have one short story that's a romance that's already out. I have a crime thriller with a noir esque vibe that's coming out this Halloween. I'm drafting a magical realism story. I have a fantasy that I don't know what to do with it yet. Things like that. I like to explore other genres with my short stories. I also have a couple of poetry posted on my YouTube channel. You can find that on my YouTube channel. That's also Dal Cecil Bruno, like the name on the screen. I have social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. It's all under Dal Cecil Bruno. Ah, yeah, I forgot. I have a Patreon. Yeah, I have a Patreon. I forgot to say that. Um, I stream every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So every single Wednesday, unless Armageddon happens or something, but I stream every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I also co-host on many other live streams, and I think that's me on a nutshell. Thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome. And my name is Lauren Severe. This is my YouTube channel. If you're watching this video, it would be awesome if you liked, subscribed, shared, all the good things, rang the bell to get notified because my upload schedule is in the word chaos. I am a author, YouTuber, and mom from down home, Louisiana. And on my channel, I like to talk about writing books, reading books, selling books, and kind of everything in between, as you could see with this stream, usually with wine in hand, which I will be getting with dinner shortly. Heather did say the last comment, yeah, and some disabilities are invisible, like ADHD and others like autism.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Heather.
I absolutely agree 100% with you. I actually have ADHD. I've had it my entire life and was medicated for my entire life. And I actually plan to do a series of videos about how I cope as a writer without medication, having a severe case of ADHD and different things like that. So if these are some of the things that you want to hear about or might help inform your world building or your writing style or anything like that, make sure you subscribe. Go check out Dal's channel because she's awesome. And thank you so much for listening and being here. And yeah, just being supportive. We appreciate you guys so much and hope to see you again soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.